Oh, things never surprise us every day of the week. I tell you what, Adelaide's a pretty good place to be buying at the moment. And now today our guest in the studio is Chris Gill. He's a conveyancer. He's also with Courses Lawyers. They're the people that have actually produced the documentation for the Auctioneers and Appraisers Society and used by probably about half of the market. And he knows his stuff when it comes to conveyancing, and one of the most important parts of selling a property is getting your documents right. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Anthony, to have me on the show.
Yeah, it's good. Chris, just a bit of background to what today's about. You're the people who put together the documents, which are all of the details that when someone buys a property, they get given to them. So perhaps just explain to us when we say the contract and the Form 1, which is a terminology used when you're looking to buy and sell a property. So for those that have never done it before, just explain to us what's involved.
Okay, you'll get, as a vendor, initially you'll be asked to sign a Form 1 with a real estate agent. That's been traditionally prepared by the agent. It's a vendor disclosure to a purchaser. So it provides,
Yeah, so that means that if you're selling a property, it says things about the property that could impact on the purchaser.
Certainly, it gives details about council approvals, if there's any encumbrances, mortgages, environment protection issues, anything that the vendor should be disclosing to the purchaser that the government believe is important enough to be advised.
Now, Chris, not so long ago they changed the law and they made the document, I think, almost unworkable for the average person who's just looking to buy a house. Explain to me how you're finding it. You're the one that has to invariably explain it to people. How complex is that form now?
Well, I started conveyancing in 1985. We had what was called the Form 18, the precursor to the Form 1.
Yep.
The 3 pages, simple.
Everyone understood it?
It was easy. We might have checked with council. We might have checked with SA Water, perhaps highways. You know, a very simple document. We basically worked out what we thought was important and then we provided it to the purchaser. Now, the government over the last 15 or 20 years has significantly increased the disclosure by a vendor. There's over 100 questions and departments that need to be quizzed and then translated into a Form 1. Now, I think the Form 1 now, especially in changes that have come in the last 2 years, has become a document that purchasers don't understand. Real estate agents need a law degree or conveyancing certificate to be able to understand it, and they have to then try and explain it to a vendor and take the responsibility for it. And I think the government, I know what it's trying to achieve, but the methodology behind it is perhaps a little bit flawed.
Chris, consumerism basically has gone mad because the consumer, I know, I'm in the field, don't get it. The seller doesn't understand what he's signing and the buyer doesn't understand what he's signing. So let's take the seller's point of view, which is where the real estate agent is the one that's getting the information from the owner and helping them make a statement. Some of the big issues that have come out of that in very recent times with the falling market, things have changed a lot. You're seeing some of those outcomes come through. Explain to us how important it is to get that form right.
Right, a rising market. We had, going back 12 months, 18 months, we had 5, 10 buyers for every property. If one purchaser wasn't satisfied with the documents, there's always a fallback. There was another buyer at or around the same dollars, the risk was minimal. Now,
sometimes of course, more dollars.
Sometimes more, so sometimes there's perhaps a benefit. However, what we're finding now is there may only be 1 or 2 buyers for every property. If a Form 1 is incorrectly prepared, the vendor, I don't believe, has the knowledge to know whether it's right or wrong. They rely on the professionalism of the person who's prepared it. If there has been an error in the preparation, and that could be a very simple grammatical error, it could be something that's technically irrelevant to the transaction, but it may make a form defective. The risk for a vendor is the purchaser can ask for the form to be reserved and their cooling off period may recommence and they can take the opportunity of withdrawing from the contract.
Now this has been happening, hasn't it?
It has been.
Hence why you're on today.
Hence the reason. Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, if someone wants out of a contract, a contract is difficult to get out of. Everybody understands and they probably understand what's required. The Form 1 is where the complexity arises and that's what we need to see if a purchaser wants to withdraw.
Now, Chris, as a real estate agent, it's left brain, right brain thing. The administration people, the people who fill out the forms, are by the definition generally not salespeople.
Yep.
Or certainly they might be salespeople, they're not good salespeople. Salespeople, on the other hand, the most successful ones tend to be out there, they're gregarious, they're excited, they're into it. whereas the people who fill out the forms well tend to be more office-bound type thinkers. You know, they're in a different space. Talk to me of how bad some of the stuff that comes through across your desk, across the industry, not TOOP+TOOP necessarily, but hopefully never from us, but what sort of state are these forms in and how much risk is there in it?
I think the worst one we saw, I wasn't actually sure what was being sold. There were so many mistakes. There was no property address. It wasn't signed by any parties. There was no documents attached to it. The agent fulfilled the obligation to provide something to a purchaser, but could they rely on it? Absolutely not. And part of our role is sometimes to fix the problems before settlement. Sometimes they're not capable of being fixed. The accuracy level I would put to be 50%, correct?
50.
And maybe that's being a bit generous. Maybe it's even a bit worse because they're so difficult now. And even I've been preparing them for 15 years, and even I struggle on some of them to try and dissect what's being provided to translate it into a form.
Right, well, Chris, it's got to the stage where the professional real estate agents in South Australia have all now gone to outsourcing the technical side of preparation of the Form 1. You have set up, as others have, a specialist Form 1 company because it's that complicated and it's that important. Tell me about it.
We recognised probably 18 months ago that there was a need, and we were being continuously approached by real estate agents to say, we don't think we're capable of doing this Form 1 document. What options are available to us? So we set up a company called the Form 1 Company, specifically designed to prepare the documents, the statutory forms, to undertake the correct searches, collate the document, receive good, clear instructions from a vendor, and then provide it to the agent for the execution and serving on a purchaser.
Now that in turn creates safety for the owner.
It does, because they're not relying entirely on the real estate agent's expertise or the office expertise. And there are a lot of instances where the agent just isn't able to understand the responses.
Complexity of it.
Environment protection is a classic example. There's a lot of complex questions and an agent is not trained to be able to understand it.
So Chris, do you think it's very much a matter of the market getting back to the people who are good at marketing, selling, speaking to buyers, negotiating, sticking to the knitting, sticking to what they know, and then over here the legal type people now getting far more advanced, and like your business with setting up specialist business to just look after the legal side of it, separate the two, get all of the time from the agent's point of view focused on selling and negotiating out in the field with people to get the documents ready to go. You guys then supply the documents and put it together in a safe way. Is that how you see it?
Well, it's been happening that way in the eastern states for forever.
Forever.
New South Wales agents sell, they use their expertise for what they're trained to do.
Mm-hmm.
The contracts and their statutory forms are prepared by real estate agents. So by lawyers or conveyancers. Victoria is a bit of a hybrid. Depending on the deal, they'll sometimes do it themselves, but their equivalent to our Form 1 to Section 32 is invariably done by lawyers now. And we're just an extension of that. And I think, I've always thought previously that an agent doing a contract in Form 1 was great because they're at the coalface. Agent doing a contract, I think it's important, but a Form 1 has gone past the
which sits
use
behind
by
that.
date.
Yep.
It does.
Okay, Chris, we'll come back to it in a minute, but just before we do go to the next segment, so essentially what we're talking about is this component, and it's not that expensive, is it? Like it is $1,000 or something in Sydney, I know, or even more than that. Your charges for that component are roughly what?
$330, including GST, and the cost of the property searches, but the agent would be doing them anyway. So that's a cost, doesn't matter how the deal works.
So it's negligible?
No, to avert the risk and to be comfortable that a week before settlement, you're not going to have a purchaser saying, I don't want to buy this property. It's money well spent. Best insurance you can do.
Fantastic, Chris. We'll come back in a minute with a few more questions, but in the meantime, let's go and have a look at a few properties that have been sold, and we've had a really good week. So let's just enjoy this segment. Plenty happening out there in the market.